Dr. Friday was talking about those who are in this room. Obviously, we have some extraordinary island leaders from governments around the planet. But there are also a number of pieces of the puzzle that we need to be a part of this conversation as well. And those are those with the resources and capacity to invest and transform and achieve the resilience and prosperity that we're here today to talk about. One of our co-hosts for this evening, for today's programming, is the Family Offices for Sustainable Development. FOSD is an initiative launched by Public Foundation and the UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund to mobilize family offices or those with means who are committed to achieving impact on the front lines. And we're fortunate to be joined today by the Executive Director of FOSD, Mr. Laurence Kalinsky, who will introduce 3 delegates from FOSD who have flown in from around the world to join us here today. Mr. Kalinsky, will you please join me on stage and introduce your panelists?
Good morning, everybody. First, I'd like to thank Trammell for allowing us the opportunity to all be here and be part of this conversation. Matt, obviously, with the Master of Ceremonies, and as always, he got all the names right correctly, like he did last year, although there was a few more last year. Dr. Friday, Lord Whakafanua, again, thank you very much. My name is Laurence Kalinsky. I'm the Executive Director of the Family Offices for Sustainable Development, as Matt had said. My job is basically to connect global family offices, high net worth, and basically large-scale capital globally to try to move this to developing states and nations across the world that actually need it most. And as we basically continue our work with the SIDS, we're very much in support at Public Foundation with helping with the ABIS and at the SIDS 4 conference and working through institutions like the Center of Excellence, which would be housed in Antigua and Barbuda, to act as a catalyst for bringing capital, technology, and for the island nations. So with the importance of what we do only happens because we have leading families from around the world. And I'm honored today to be able to introduce Mr. Osvald Bjelland from Norway. Osvald, will you come up and join me, please? Mr. Michael Lemon, BTR Energy, a local boy from here in Texas. And Mr. Kwasi Asare, a member of the Ashanti royal family coming from Ghana, is also currently residing in Texas. So hopefully we'll engage in a conversation on catalytic capital. Please be seated. This is great. And I'd like to thank Matt. He managed to put me in on the panel right after Ambassador Sito, who's got the greatest voice ever. So thank you, Ambassador. That was beautiful. So panelists, thank you very much for joining us. You've heard, the initial panelists talk about the importance of partnerships and what it means to actually engage. And we live in very, very uncertain times, particularly with what's happening at the UN, the freedom of capital, how this is working. So a big part of what we do at FOSD is try to engage the private sector to be able to work across the public sector as well. So my first question is for all the panelists, as we're looking at the ability to move capital, the importance of family offices, high net worth, on playing the role for moving this capital, how do you view, like as family offices, the importance of global impact as part of your investment portfolios? Mike.
It's incredibly important. I tend to view everything systemically. So Food, Water, Energy Nexus, Bridge to Renewables was a company founded to address the impact that mobility and transportation has by connecting electric cars to sources of renewable energy. And I guess sort of very germane to this conversation about island nations, a lot of the projects that we work with are actually landfills, animal agriculture facilities, wastewater treatment, and looking at alternatives to what we currently do with waste, and try to generate electricity from that as well.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be with you. It's a tremendous discussion, to feel the energy in the room. I just wanted by mentioning one story from one of the leading European financiers in Stockholm just before Christmas. And we have been working together to raise 6.5 billion euros to build one of the most, the leading green steel plant in northern Sweden. And this plant is now going up, and a massive investment. And then we were working on a number of other projects, and he said that, Osvald, there's so many people talking about all this money floating around, but where is it? And basically, what we are learning and seeing is that we need really to take the world, or probably also on the islands, from where we are today into where it needs to be. You need hundreds or thousands of investments to actually bring us there. And the question is, how do we achieve this? And one of the things we see is that we do not have the patient capital we need to actually take on some of these big challenges. The success of H2 Green Steel was really to be able to put together philanthropy, European Commission money, government money, and private equity. So it was this very capacity to organize the deal in a way that made it possible to de-risk private capital. So I'm not answering your question directly here, Laurence, but what I'm trying to get to is how can we actually, because there is another beautiful expression in my part of the world, is actually we live in snow and ice half of the year. And when speed is what several speakers mentioned earlier today, and when skating on thin ice, speed is of essence. So it is very much a question of how do you speed it up, and the way to speed it up very much, in my opinion, is how do we put these deals together differently than in the past?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question, Laurence. It's been a pleasure working with FOSD over the last few months, for sure. And I think, in Ghana, we're facing the same issues with a lot of the island nations are facing. We're being affected first and foremost on the front lines of climate. And unfortunately, we don't necessarily have the resources to combat it. And I think USAID and kind of America stepping back from its role as a global leader presents a number of challenges, certainly, but also opportunities for the private sector to really step up and private capital to actually step in, bridge the gap, and actually lead, as opposed to kind of waiting for nation states to kind of take the lead on action. There's an opportunity for family offices, and I think for private institutions and organizations like the FOSD to actually plant a flag and to be actually plant that North Star as opposed to kind of following nation states. And I think that's a unique opportunity right now that a lot of us are excited about. And I think with Public Foundation's leadership, we're all very excited to be a part of this change.
So let's actually stay there with you, Kwasi, because I think what everybody's really interested in is, again, when we think about investments and we think about, family offices and, the concept of developing resilience requires economic returns, social returns, right? How do you define specifically from your perspective, from a family office or the high net worth perspective, how do you balance the for-profit, the social returns? I think that'd be really interesting to hear.
Well, I'm a little biased. I'm definitely going to lean more into the cultural return category. I come from the media industry as well, and so it's not just about seeing, how many people are we feeding. Obviously, these are very important metrics. How many lives are we saving? But also, how many minds are we influencing? How much democracy are we sharing? How much freedom are we sharing? These are metrics that are much harder to kind of measure on a bar graph. But I think these are the things that are going to allow for sustainability to actually be sustainable and reduce the cost of capital for us to make the impact that we want going forward.
Amazing. Mike, same question, given the fact that you're currently an entrepreneur in the weeds of basically building an energy company.
Yeah, and I actually pivot from an energy company to a recent investment that we made in a reusable plastic cups company. And a big part of that was we realized that, in the world of sustainability, being able to visualize that connection to music, to culture, but then also to a story behind responsibly enjoying that moment. And I think that's really opened up many conversations with leaders and cities about implementing those types of solutions in their local communities. I also think that, like in the energy sector, I mentioned earlier, like waste, and the data around waste and what we do with it is becoming much more granular. And I think that that intersection between, you know, making investments in an increasingly data-rich environment and being able to track those investments, that really helps inform the impact that we have over the long term.
Great. Oswald.
Yes, I'm thinking about the discussion here, and I'm reflecting on how will it be possible to get those investments we need, and now we see also major players retract. And I think one key consideration is to look at the patience of capital. And then the question is, who do have patient capital in this room? Who do have patient capital in the world? And in my opinion, there are four groups that have that. One is the next generation, very resourceful family offices. The second or third or fourth generation, speaking with people, and they say, well, the last thing we need is to make another billion. My family have done this for such a long time. The really question is, how do we invest purposefully and longer term? So that's one group. The second group we have identified are very successful entrepreneurs, first generation, who would like to move from success to significance. They have a conscience, they have a view, they would like to be more helpful. And the third, which is a very interesting group of people, are Fortune 500 new venture arms. So if you speak with Verizon and if you speak with Royal Dutch Shell or many of these big players, the new venture arm have a lot of money, and they are absolutely not looking for short-term return. They wonder, where will this company be long-term? And then the fourth group is special cases. So if you go in, for example, and look at the Balkans, it's 15, 20 years since the war ended. They are, in other words, they are 15, 20 years ahead of Ukraine in terms of rebuilding. We know that there is an enormous amount of money that goes in to those places when the peace arrives. How can you channel that money in service of generations to come? So I think what is really important and what's fantastic with this, what you're doing here, is to build these communities of originators. And that's another key word. And I know I'm not neutral, but it took me only 30 years to get to this business of origination, because we have all different skills and we are all different capacity. So we are really depend on those people who can create these new models, the originators, and then make them happen. I spoke yesterday with Sørensen, who in Denmark talk about models for energy efficiency, which are fantastic. These are new models, and they should be replicated at scale. Just as this H2 Green Steel, I'm going to shut up now, but H2 Green Steel, which we mentioned, 6.5 billion in investment, that investment in itself will reduce the carbon footprint in the country of Sweden by 6.2%. So that will impact generations to come. And if we can scale that many other places, it actually changes the world.
Thank you. We're going to hear more from you later this afternoon, particularly on how you are working on a program called HOPE, Inspiring Action, across the globe for sustainable development. So, but you talked about the entrepreneurs. And when we think about entrepreneurs, we're going to hear a lot from the entrepreneurs that are here. We heard last night the concept of technology transfer and how this works. The biggest challenge that we see, particularly with the FOSD, is call it the public-private partnership structure, and how sometimes it becomes very difficult, gets bogged down in bureaucracy. So how is the private sector and its families and as the capital and call it the patient capital, the good capital, if you would, right? How can we basically work with these governments, these small island states, to be able to help them understand or open up or create less bureaucracy as we're doing the implementation? So, Kwasi, thoughts?
Yeah, I think the answer, AI and blockchain, right? Maybe that's the 300-pound elephant in the room, right? But these systems that are being developed, automating all kinds of things from production to data and analysis, et cetera, are making the private sector here more efficient. And I think these are systems that can scale certainly to small other nations who are looking to develop resilient structures. I know some of the products that Mike and I have worked on over the years as well are actually directly addressing, like he mentioned RCOP earlier. This is a company that's basically a direct replacement for single-use plastics that can actually provide, well, really anyone a solution to eradicate a large amount of waste that especially small island nations are especially sensitive to. So I think it's about leveraging leading-edge innovation and technology, as well as putting capital to work and solutions that can scale globally.
Mike, any thoughts?
And yet, Kwasi, yes. I think in this conversation, I go to the durability. Bridge to renewables, BTR energy, and I'll say this here at EarthX. I started that company out of protesting the Keystone Pipeline about a decade ago. And it's grown, but it's been through multiple administrations. Elections have consequences, but I think that being mission aligned and finding those durable investors, both also in the private, public sector as well, nonprofits, that's the kind of durability that's necessary in terms of thinking in decades, and that's very rare for an entrepreneur to highlight. But I think when you're trying to have the change that we seek here at EarthX, and you're talking about national policy, but also all the way down to the small originators trying to influence that, it's just a longer sort of lifetime journey in a way.
Mike, thank you very much for sharing that reflection. And you see, after like several hundred projects that I've been involved with, of course, I've been around the sun more times than these young people here. I met a long time ago Jerry Edelman. He won the Nobel Prize in Medicine from Rockefeller Center, and I convinced him to come to Norway to he gave an absolutely brilliant speech. We got to know each other, and I asked him, how is it that you have more Nobel laureates at Rockefeller than any other place in medicine in the world? And he said that, well, it's quite easy. The research is very evident. The one is, and this goes back to how can we help each other and the islands, all right? He said that there are two factors that explains this. The one is we have a laser-sharp shared understanding of what we are trying to solve. So is it a cardiovascular issue? Is it cancer? What kind of cancer? Is it kidneys? What are we precisely trying to solve? And then the second thing, which is very, very interesting, is that we build a community inside. We have built a community with a certain structure where we have very, very rapid communication between very smart people representing diverse backgrounds who are interested in solving the same damn thing. So I think it is truly important, if we're going to speed things up, that we really engage in setting up the problem correctly. And number two is that we engage very deeply in bringing the right people together in a way that they can actually communicate and move things. So one of the big problems we also have, we all live in this, in companies, for example, we have quarterly reporting, we have annual AGMs, and we have these structures. They're just too slow. It just takes forever. So we need to break some eggs to make a good omelette now and really start to work differently. And then I think we will solve problems faster.
I love that. I love that.
Just to piggyback on that, you used the word culture, and I think that's going to be what's going to allow us to have real resilience. nation states are going away. The problems are not. Culture is what's going to persist and allow us to actually share ideas in the rapid fashion that you're talking about, allow us to actually break through a lot of the barriers that we currently have with bureaucracy. Culture is going to be the thing that allows us to actually strive and hopefully achieve our goals going forward.
Well, we're just about out of time. But you heard Ambassador Tony talk about the DBRP public foundations. Obviously, a great steward of that instrument, and we're going to be creating, and the world needs more instruments like DBRP and more and AI. There's so many different ways that we can actually move capital that didn't actually exist before. So in 20 seconds, just a quick wrap up, from a kind of leapfrog perspective, what's the recommendation, for the island states, particularly is how we help them leapfrog to the next generation?
Yeah, no, it's a great opportunity right now. Innovation is happening so fast, and it's not just in Silicon Valley. It's in Austin. It's here in Dallas. It's in Ghana, right? There's never been a greater opportunity, I think, for leapfrogging to occur. And the island nations, you're in a position where you can leverage accumulated knowledge from really the globe to help solve your challenges in ways that we've never been able to before. So it's exciting, and excited to be a part of the process.
Awesome. Mike, last word.
Yeah, I'd echo that, and I think technology and the technology transfer and ability to apply that in unique ways. In Austin, we've been leaning into regenerative agriculture. Applying technology on farm that actually helps build back soil. A lot of those systems and technologies were just so nascent 10 years ago, and now all of that's changed.
Fantastic. Oswald, bring us home.
Well, my view is I came to America a long time ago, and I've had this incredible pleasure of being here. I just pick up a lot of comments of how bad everything is these days. But I just told some friends the other day that, for example, in Europe, where I live, in Oslo, 80 years ago, it was an unbelievable, tragic situation. And everything is so much better now. So I think it's time to pull our socks up and actually get on with it. And keep going. And be very, very careful with be very mindful with two things. One is to set up the problem correctly and then bring in the right people who actually would like to move fast.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, panelists. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and hopefully we'll continue to engage.